Hi everybody, in this video we're going to be talking about chord transitions and some basic chord progressions, okay? First of all, I want to look at the C chord and the G chord. Again, a very common chord progression. And one of the things we have to keep in mind during this whole exercise is everything we covered in our previous videos, really, which is making sure that you can play each chord individually, nice and clean, nice and clear. It doesn't take you too long to think of a chord type and be able to play that chord. Your muscle memory needs to be like right there. So if I say C chord, you know which chord that is, right? If I say a G chord, you need to know exactly which chord that is, and not not be able to get too tripped up on the fingerings. You should know what it is right away. If not, take some more time to practice, okay? Because this exercise will be a lot more difficult if you don't have the other techniques in place, okay? So a couple of videos ago, we were talking about the chords themselves. So again, make sure you know those super well. The patterns in our previous video, the basic strumming patterns, again, that has to be very clear as well. So make sure you go back to especially both of those videos and make sure you're up to speed on those. So again, for the G chord and the C chord, first of all, when it comes to transitions, before we get to any kind of metronomic practice, so before we have the metronome, which we will be using again for this video, before we get to that, I want to make sure you can play the C chord and the G chord. Let's say we strum each one 4 times, and then you get to the next chord, strum it 4 times, go back and forth. Again, that's using our pattern 1, which is simply quarter notes. All I'm doing is playing all downstroke quarter notes. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so again, the metronome is at 60 beats per minute. It's a great practice tempo for these. Not too slow, just fast enough to be a little bit of a challenge. As time goes on, just start bumping up that tempo a little bit. By maybe 5 beats per minute at a time. Be really helpful. One of the things that's common with this kind of chord progression, in this case C and G, you'll either play the chords once per measure, in other words, 4 beats per chord. It's also common to stretch that out to 2 measures per chord. So that would be 8 beats of C, in other words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then 8 counts of G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that would sound like this. So 8 full beats of each chord. 3, 4. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now G. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Now C. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Now G. Good. This is an introduction to it, to keep the video not super long, right? Just give you the idea. You can rewind, go back to each of these small sections and these examples. You can rewind, you can go over it again. Make sure you have a metronome and you can try it yourself, okay? It's not really meant to play along with the video necessarily, all right? Just kind of give you an idea. Now, before we move on to our next chord progression example, if we stick with this one for a minute, I'm not going to go through all of the rhythmic examples we did, and you can do that on our video on rhythm, right? You can work on that yourself. But I do want to just talk about again the two main types: pattern 1, pattern 2. Pattern 2 being the eighth notes. Now, in this example, this is still just the chords C and G. Great way to get started with these. You can do either of two things. You can do alternating pattern, right, which is down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, which is on the the combination of beat and offbeat, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or you can do all downstroke, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, which is the more rock, punk, pop way, right? You could do that. So, but know both. Definitely want to be able to know both of those. Okay, here's what that's like over that pattern. So this is, we'll just do 2 measures of each chord. Again, so 8 full counts of each chord. Okay, here's what that sounds like. 2, 3, 4. Again, to get these transitions, you have to know each chord really, really, really well, and you'll get a muscle memory for each chord. One thing I like to do is to look at this particular chord progression that you're going over. And again, that's a finite thing. It's not like there are, thousands of different chord progressions necessarily. There are relatively few, and especially using these basic chords on the guitar, you can get through them. It is exhaustible, right? You can get to all the patterns, really. Like going from a C chord to a G chord, super duper common. So you can kind of look and maybe see what each finger is doing. What's the third finger doing in the C chord, right? And when I move to the G chord, where does it go? Oh, it goes from the 5th string 3rd fret from the C to the 1st string 3rd fret. Okay, right? And you can do the same thing with the 2nd finger. So on the C chord, it's on the 4th string 2nd fret, and it goes to the 3rd fret of the 6th string. It goes from here to here, right? 3rd finger goes from here to here. 1st finger goes from here to here. So C chord, it's on the 2nd string 1st fret. G chord, it goes to 5th string 2nd fret, from here to here. So one kind of cool thing you can do is once you've really learned the chords, you're comfortable with it. It doesn't take you much time to make the chord shape whenever you think about it. That'd be the next thing to do, the next step of making these transitions and these chords super muscle memory, right? Just like grabbing and picking up a pencil and writing with it. You don't have to think about it anymore. You did for a brief period of time, but not anymore, right? This is the same exact thing. You just have to be really, really hyper aware of what's going on in your hand to be able to do this kind of activity. It just takes some time. Okay, let's go ahead and go to another example. All it really is doing is it's switching the two chords. We have a G, C, and a D chord. Okay, so we have these 3 chords: G, C, and D. Okay. Another thing to kind of keep in mind with these, I'm just showing you these as a basic example. These progressions and these chords can really come in any pattern. So I'm just going to show it to you in that exact pattern here, G, C, D, but it can come in any combination. It can go C, D, G, or D, C, G, or it doesn't have to be 3 chords, right? You can have G, C, C, right? So that's 4 chords, right? G, C, D, C. 4 chords in the pattern, but there's a repeat of the C chord. See what I mean? So I'm just giving you the simplified version. As you learn more songs, you're going to start to see these patterns develop. And that's a little bit too exhaustive for this video, but you'll kind of get the idea at least. I just want to show you in the fact that there are a few other patterns you can go over. And here are some just to practice a little bit. And ideally, come up with your own progressions. Take these examples I show you and try to come up with some patterns of your own. So first we'll have G, and then C, and D. And the one I said before, that's a fairly common one. G, C, D, C. Okay, very, very common kind of pattern. D, G, and A is another one. It's D, G, A. Okay, maybe you would go D to A, and then G to A. That maybe. There's also A, D, and E. You could go through that pattern. A, D, E. And again, in various combinations. Try to mix them around a little bit. Try E. E, D, A. Okay. To add a couple of instances of the E minor and the A minor chord, we could use the first example we did, which was C and G. Right, we had C, G, we could add A minor. Something like that, okay? So that's C, G, A minor. Maybe we have G, real famous song with that progression. Okay, so that was G, D, A minor, G, D, G. Okay, so G, and that's the thing about the chord patterns, the progressions themselves and the pattern on which you prescribe to that chord progression, that's generally repeated across a song usually with very little variation in most styles. So just these sort of kind of fundamentals that we're going over, you're really learning how songs go together, and that's how, with, again, very little actual variation. Okay, so again, what I would do is I would practice these patterns and start looking at some online resources for some songs that you want to learn, and you can, more than likely you'll find that pattern, and it's probably one of the patterns that we've gone over. And then I think even better, just try some of these chord patterns on your own and try to come up with your own variations, given the ones that I gave you. Those are common chords that go together, C and G, or G, C, and D, D, G, and A, D, E, C, G, A minor, and G, D, and A minor. Those are pretty common chords that go together in some combination. So enjoy your practice, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.